Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Well, good Thursday to you. Seth Harp, Harp on Sports, in for Shane Matthews today. Over the course of the next 60 minutes, it'll be myself and Brent Beaird taking you through week 7 of the college football season and looking ahead to everything that awaits, even a creamsicle game in Tampa for the Buccaneers as they bust out those old 70s and 80s uniforms that I know Coach Spurrier was used to, and I don't know if he was very fond of, but those are going to make their return this weekend as well. Again, Seth Harp for Shane Matthews here with you on this Thursday. Quick reminder to everyone, PodUp with Matthews in the morning, coming to you live from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Facebook Live questions, fire away, courtesy of Meldon Law, the only official injury accident law firm partner of the Florida Gators. If you have YouTube questions, fire away, courtesy of Quality Plumbing, residential and commercial plumbing services and emergency repair since 1984. Our name says it all. So glad that I get to work with my cohort in crime, Mr. Brent Beaird, today over the course of the next, like I said, hour. We're going to look at a lot of things. And Brent, I know that it's supply and demand, right, bud? The demand for college football is through the roof, and the supply is very short. It is only 12 weeks long, less than 25% of the year. And Brent, we're halfway through the year, and I don't know what clarity that we really have, Brent, that we didn't have 4 or 5 weeks ago. I'm trying to figure out here, and I want to start off with this. Where are we today that we weren't 5-6 weeks ago?
Well, we're pretty much, in a lot of ways, very similar. I mean, obviously, Georgia's still number one. Michigan is Ohio State, Florida State, are all basically where they have been. Now, Oklahoma's crept up there a little bit after the win over Texas. Penn State still lurking. Washington, Oregon, Southern Cal, all in the top 10 as they have been for a while. Now, obviously, Alabama, before the Texas loss and the USF, it was a win, but it was a debacle in some ways, and they have kind of righted the ship, so they're hovering around the entrance again to the top 10. But frankly, to answer your question, Seth, until we really get into and that's what we're about to do. A lot of these matchups, we're still ways away from Michigan, Ohio State, but we are getting close of that. Penn State being involved with that too. Washington and Oregon are about to play, and we'll have a little bit more clarity. But it's been interesting. And again, anything we say right now, we really need to add the caveat of, well, how different are we going to be looking at the top 25 and pretty much everything we talk about a year from now when we have the expanded playoff? That's also what makes looking at all this right now even more interesting.
I'm sitting here and I'm so glad you brought that up, because what's our debate today? Here we are in the middle of October, and our debate is what? Our debate is, okay, well, the Pac-12 really hasn't, still what, 3 undefeated teams in the Pac-12. The SEC has 1 left. The Big Ten still has 3. The ACC has multiple. The Big 12's down to 1. But we can still see these paths, right, Brett? If Texas turns around and beats Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship, okay, there's this path. I'm trying to think of when we have, let's say that we had the 12-team playoff today. Okay, what would we be talking about today? we'd be what? No, does Notre Dame still have a shot if they run the table? Does LSU still have a shot if they run the table? I mean, would that be? I'm trying to think what the discussion would be, because there's so much left to be played, even though we're halfway through the year. Trying to categorize teams 1 through 7 or 1 through 8 would kind of be a waste right now, wouldn't it?
Well, here's what's interesting about this, though. Right now, and as we get on in the season, it will narrow. I mean, we're obviously know that whoever's in the top 10 has got a shot right now at being in the Final Four. Now, what's going to be different next year is, and to me, this is the thing that's going to make this exciting, is we got 12 spots, which means that we're going to have as many as probably, we're going to be looking at the top 20 instead of the top 10. So there are going to be more teams. There are going to be more excitement with this. And you're talking about, I mean, North Carolina, Ole Miss, Louisville, Oregon State, Utah, Duke, UCLA, Washington State, Tennessee, and Notre Dame. And that reaches out to about the top 22, something in there. Look, Seth, that's what's going to make this thing really go, is when we get down and start talking about how far-reaching this is and how many fan bases are going to be involved with this compared to what we've got now.
He is Brent Beaird. I am Seth Harp in for Shane Matthews today here on PodUp with Matthews in the morning. Again, you had a question for us, fire away. Facebook Live, Meldon Law, YouTube question, quality plumbing. Also, a couple other things for everyone today. That PodUp with Matthews in the morning is brought to you in part by Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. The 1966 HBC beer available at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Gator Games in the Swamp and select retail outlets. Crisp American Lager. That's 1966 HBC beer. Okay, Brett, speaking of beer, may need to toss a couple back if you are in the Beamer family, because he is on full, I don't want to say alert, but defense mode with the South Carolina Gamecocks. He's in year 3, right, Brent? And
yes.
You look at the struggles at Virginia Tech. Apparently, the South Carolina fan base not very happy with the progress. And I kind of get it, because last year they were teased, right? They knock off Tennessee in grandiose fashion at the end of the year, go in and pretty much outplay Notre Dame for 50, 55 minutes in that Gator Bowl. And then Michael Mayer takes over late and Notre Dame wins that thing. So a lot of people thought this year, me included, okay, South Carolina, 8-4, 9-4 last year. Look, they get Florida at home. I mean, Georgia's still a tall task, but the way the schedule lines up for South Carolina, if lightning strikes, they could be like a 10-2 team. Not the case this year. In year 3, I don't want to say falling apart for Shane Beamer, but not where this fan base thought it would go. Virginia Tech is a mess. You see what I'm doing here, Brent? Yep. I mean, with the Gators on the horizon, if you're Shane Beamer, are you looking up the road to Blacksburg here a little bit?
Oh, well, possibly. What has helped him so much has been they have played well at the end of the year. And he's had wins over Tennessee and Clemson and Florida, and you can't overlook that. If you're a South Carolina fan. Now, they want more, and I get that, and they've got probably the best quarterback they're going to have in a while. They still need weapons. They do have Xavier Leggett, who has really stood up and played well for them. Their offensive line right now is a mess, and that has not helped them at all. But yes, that's a passionate, hungry, probably getting impatient fan base that wants to be able to hang their hat on something more than they do, and it's just really not going on right now, which makes this Gator game for both of those teams, it's kind of what we call one of these 50-50 games. Either team can win this game. It would certainly help the winner immensely. The losers not. I mean, the season's not going to be over, but at the same time, it's not going to help. So, and I'm sure what they're saying is he the answer? We still don't quite know that yet. I mean, they can recruit. They're recruiting better than they have in a while. We're not seeing the results on the field necessarily at 2 and 3. They can't really be necessarily happy about that. But as you said, if they were to get on a winning streak, and they're capable of doing that in November, but all in all, is Beamer what we thought he would be? And probably, Seth, what, in fairness, the guy's got to grow up within the job and he's got to mature within the job. The question is going to be, and they usually have been patient, but will they be patient with him? And I think that's kind of what you're asking. And I'd agree with that.
Yeah, it's such a, I don't want to say a transition year in the SEC, but you look at what Beamer in year 3 at South Carolina, of course, Napier in year 2 at Florida. You look at Drinkwitz, Missouri, and it looked like, okay, well, here they come. And, off to a very solid, strong start. And then, they stubbed their toe in heartbreaking fashion from their perspective. But all of a sudden, you start to look around here a little bit, and you got, other coaches that have been at there. Oh, Hugh Freeze at Auburn, what's he done
Right.
here? It's like, okay, well, what are expectations? And Dion kind of blew expectations out of the water. But I was trying to remind people, Florida's got as many losses as Colorado. And, and Florida gets beat, they got thumped by Kentucky, but Colorado got embarrassed out at Oregon. So it's like, well, why can't we turn it around as quick as Colorado? Colorado really, they're going to go 8-4 or 7-5 this year when it's all done.
Maybe.
So it's not like that's
Maybe.
a massive turnaround. It's not like they're LSU with what Brian Kelly did last year there, Brent.
Right. No, they're not. And you bring in some good points here. You've still got, I can tell you this, Seth, do you think South Carolina wish they had the stability of Kentucky right now? And what Mark Stoops has done, have they won an East Championship? No. But they have been consistently, and I would say kind of inching up the echelon of the Eastern Division. They're 5-1 right now. We know and knew they were not going to beat Georgia, and they certainly did not. But at 5-1, Kentucky could easily be anywhere from 7 wins to maybe even 9, depending on where they're going. You mentioned Eli Drinkwitz. They're much better. They could have beat LSU, frankly, but their defense failed them in the end. But gosh, who can stop Jaden Daniels right now? Josh Heupel. I still think the jury's out a little bit. They had a marvelous year last year. Yeah, they've got a gargantuan game against A&M that's coming up. The league is fascinating right now because Missouri and Kentucky and Ole Miss have had a better year than some people thought they would, which has added a little bit of juice to the SEC.
He is Brent Beaird. I am Seth Harp, in for Shane Matthews here on PodUp with Matthews in the morning, brought to you in part by Radware. Radware, family-owned business that prides itself on excellent customer service while providing quality and affordable promotional products and customized apparel. We need to get Harp on Sports T-shirts and what do we got? Brent's Blitz, apparel for everybody as well. Hey, speaking of this, as we look into this, Florida South Carolina game. Right at the beginning of the year, I know Shane had 8-9 wins for the Gators. I had 7-5. Did you have 7-5, 8-4?
Yeah. Well, my thing was more that they would be anywhere from 6-6 to 8-4, and again, depending on where they went in these 50-50 games. Arkansas is a 50-50 game for them. that if they could steal one or two of those games, that's where it will make the difference in the season. So yes, similar to what you did.
So we're right at 4-2, and this is one of these things. I don't say it's the elephant in the room, but it's the truth in the room, Brent, that at the beginning of the year, this team's ceiling was 8 and the basement was like what you said, you 6-6, and they're 4-2. They're right where any realistic person thought they would be. Now, how they got there may be a little bit different, unconventional, right? Beating Tennessee and then getting drubbed by Kentucky, but at 4-2, and now South Carolina, then the bye. If this team's 5-2 going into Georgia or taking on Georgia in Jacksonville, that's right about where we thought.
Yeah.
And I think we're talking about this at the beginning of the year. There were 4 games after the Utah game that they had to steal one of these if they wanted to get wins. And those games were Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, and Florida State. They had to pick off one. Well, they got one, but then they had to win the rest of those. But they gave one back in Kentucky. Brett, looking at things it's a week by week thing. When I hear they lose this weekend, it's over. It's like, calm down. That's not how this works. They're not in the national title hunt. So you don't, they could lose this weekend, lose to Georgia, and then turn around and beat LSU. You don't know week by week how this lays itself out. But I'm under the thinking and the thought process here, Brett. It's going to be tough to get to 8 wins if they lose this weekend. What say you?
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's why this weekend is so important. If they can win that game, and see, they've got to start playing better on the road, and that has just not happened with them. 1-7 on the road, and that look, it's tough to be and tough to win on the road in this conference. At any time, but that's going to be something that's going to be very important for Florida. And again, they can. I still say that they can win this game this weekend if they can control the ball and they can control the clock. They can cut down on these on the penalties, and they've got a +1 in the turnover ratio. South Carolina. Look, you never know what you're going to get out of South Carolina, depending on Rattler and how he's doing. We mentioned the offensive line has not protected him. That's been a problem. Can Florida get pressure on him? But again, just be representative, hang in the game against Georgia. You've got Arkansas at home. That's a game you can win. So they could be realistically, they could be at 6 wins with if they're able to beat Arkansas. They could beat. I know the games on the road, and there's on tell what the weather is going to be at Missouri come November the 18th, right, Seth? So but look, realistically. 6-7 wins, and you're going to a bowl game. I mean, with what we thought was going in this season, I think a lot of people were realistic about that. I mean, that's something you could build on, particularly with this recruiting class that's coming in next year.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of these things with this. Brett, you and I both know that fan bases in college football lack the thing called realistic expectations.
Yeah, yes.
And it's just the way it is, right? And, as I looked at this team going into the year, I thought, well, look, the rebuild that he is doing here, this is not a Spackle Bondo job. This is tear everything down to the foundation and rebuild her from scratch is what it is. And right or wrong, he's reestablishing this from the ground up. And the way things ended last year left a sour taste in everybody's mouth. But after the Tennessee win, it's one of these things where this team, when Billy picked up that gigantic win against Tennessee, I almost think that it created this false gigantic leap forward.
Yeah, right.
And everybody thought, well, wow, now we can 6-1, 7-1 going into Georgia. It's like, whoa, baby, here. Hold on here. And I look at Florida. It's football season, and I never get to do it because I'm always at the station doing stuff, and it's football season. I look at it like when I used to or try to play golf. About once every 5 or 6 holes, I hit a shot. I'd be like, man, look at that, baby. Tiger can't do any better. That is, the other 99 shots were in the water or in the woods. And that's just the perspective. It's like, look, we do it on that shot. Why can't we do it on every shot? It's like, well, that's the consistency. That's the name of the game. And until you have an elite quarterback, we're just not there yet. But you and I agree. Win this weekend at 5-2. You're probably looking at 7 or 8 wins. And what does that get you? That gets you to Nashville for the Music City Bowl. That gets you to Tampa. That gets you into one of those tier bowls. You start 7-5, 6-6. There's where you end up in Birmingham or Boca Raton.
Right. Yeah. And look, people need to understand too, and we have, I know they're tired of hearing patience. I get that, but you've also got to understand what Dan Mullen did not leave, frankly, with this team. It has been, and it is a real problem. To me, the bright spot of this team, even though you didn't see it against Kentucky, another thing you can build on is the defense. I love Austin Armstrong. I think he's going to really do a good job with his defense, is being creative with it. And the other situation here, and Shane and I talked about this at the beginning of the year, and I talked about it with you, is this team's not physical enough yet. They have got to have another productive year in the weight room for them to be where they want to be. And the case in point is that when they played physical football teams in Utah and Kentucky, they were not able to set the line of scrimmage like they need to be able to do that. And that doesn't happen overnight either, does it, Seth? So to me, the two real building blocks are going to be your strength and conditioning program, which will only get better, and your defense, which is going to get better too. So I know folks are looking for bright spots, and we're not trying to be unrealistic here, but that's going to be what the growth of this program is going to be about.
Looking at a couple things here. Again, Brent Beaird, Seth Harp with you here on PodUp with Matthews in the morning, brought to you in part by Silverback Concrete. Silverback Concrete, family-led team of heavy concrete specialists that build commercial structures with unrivaled quality. Silverback Concrete, you stand on it. We stand by it. Speaking of standing on it and standing by it, Brett, I know that here at the halfway mark, you have a Heisman vote. It's one of these things that we've kind of even discussing the Heisman before you get to mid-October is a waste, because that's in some years. Well, look at last year. Anthony Richardson was going to win it after the Utah game, right?
Yeah, right.
But here we are, and I know that you have a vote. At the halfway mark here, there's certain guys that have played certain teams and other people that haven't played, so question marks. Right now, there are 3 guys in my book that have to be invited as of today, October 12th, that have to be invited. As of today, the 3 guys that have to be there are Michael Penix Jr. at Washington, Caleb Williams at USC, and Brock Bowers at Georgia. Those 3 have to be there. What do you say?
I don't disagree with that at all. I think Brock Bowers, frankly, if he continues to do what he has done, particularly in a game like he did against Auburn, I mean, he basically won that game for Georgia in the 4th quarter. He's got to be there. And I know this is way too much of a quarterback-centric award, but I would agree with that. And listen, Bo Nix may be there. My goodness gracious alive, would we have ever said that when he was at Auburn? But give him credit for what he has done. Isn't it amazing? I mean, these guys we're talking about, and they're basically in the last year before the Pac-12 disintegrates. That's what it amounts to. But this Penix kid in Washington, listen, the folks listening and watching, they really need to watch Washington at some point. Find out when they're going to be on and take a look at them. I'm not going to say it's the best, but it's easily one of the top 5, if not top 3 offenses in the nation. Obviously, Caleb Williams is playing well, but a lot of people are wondering, well, can Southern Cal win a national championship? My answer to that is no, because they really don't care a whole lot about playing defense there. So, Seth, their defense couldn't stop you and me and whoever's in the station, frankly. They are that bad, and they're not going to be any better until they get serious about it. Drake May is easily one of the better quarterbacks, too, from North Carolina, and they've got a big game with Miami. If Miami can get their mind straight after the mind-numbing decisions they made last week. So, yeah, a whole lot left. Jordan Travis, can't ignore him. Quinn Ewers. Also, goodness gracious, Seth, I saw a list with Jalen Milroe. And look, Jalen Milroe has gotten better, but Jalen Milroe is not a Heisman candidate. And again, it's important to remember you don't win this war until the end of the year, and you get everything together and be able to see what everybody's done on a full year. But it is another fascinating year with the Heisman coming up.
Yeah, and it's one of these weird, structurally, that the SEC, I can't think of the last time. And look, and Brock Bowers, as long as he doesn't get injured, probably will end up in New York in that second.
And he should.
I'm just trying to think of the last time the SEC didn't send a quarterback or running back to New York. I can't.
Well, we're pausing here because we can't remember it.
I can't.
Frankly, so that probably answers your question.
I think of the Big Ten. I mean, I can go through each conference and tell you a year in the last 6 or 7 that they didn't send somebody. With the SEC, they've sent somebody. We can get specific positions in terms of time, but I can't think of the last time the SEC didn't. And the Bowers will, if he, like I said, he keeps playing, he'll send somebody. So you've got the best conference year in and year out, and we're talking about a tight end, but he's the most. We look at the job a couple years ago, but Brock Bowers is on a different level right now, and to the point that if I were an NFL team like the Bears that are just awful. I love Marvin Harrison Jr. at Ohio State. That was my preseason Heisman pick. That shows you how much I know what I'm doing. But I thought, okay, what he did against Georgia last year in that college football playoff, he was uncoverable. Ohio State beats.
Absolutely.
And I thought, okay, you get him this year, Ohio State, a little bit softer schedule. Okay, they're going to be in good shape. If I am an NFL team, I draft Caleb Williams, one of those quarterbacks, and I put him with Brock Bowers, and I've got myself a Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce situation for the next 10 years in the NFL. But we'll see.
And look, the thing with Bowers is Bowers can do just about anything. I was talking to a Georgia beat writer, and he made an interesting point. He said, if I was Georgia and I got into a situation in a crucial game and it's close in the fourth quarter and our running backs are struggling to run the ball, he said I'd give it to Brock Bowers in the backfield as a running back 3 times and let him see what he can do. And I would agree with that. And listen, I agree with you on Marvin Harrison. Look, that was a logical pick, Seth. I mean, there are a lot of people thought that Harrison would end up in New York before it was over. But look, I'm with you. I mean, if there is a Bowers to me has got to be there because and here's how I'm going to phrase it. He may be the most complete player in the nation.
Yeah. I mean, to do everything he did. And he just wrote in. He's like, hey, okay, I didn't realize this. 2017, the last year the SEC didn't send anybody to the Heisman. Baker Mayfield, Bryce Love, and Lamar Jackson. Completely forgot about this. All right. PodUp with Matthews in the morning. Brent Beaird, Seth Harp with you here on this Thursday. We're going to come back. I want to ask Brent if I got a couple questions. Think about this. This is what we call in the business a tease, gang. I wanted to ask Brent if he sees anybody other than Alabama and Georgia playing in the SEC championship, and if it's possible that any conference gets 2 teams this year. Just a couple questions I have for Brent next as we continue on with PodUp with Matthews in the morning.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. QC Kinetics. Live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Campus USA. Put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. Dave & Buster's. Eat, drink, play, watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Radware, F45, Quality Plumbing. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Q Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics 352-400-4550.
All right, PodUp with Matthews in the morning. Seth Harp, Brent Beaird with you here on this Thursday. One of the things I wanted to get to here, let's see here. We're going to go through and we're going to look at each individual game inside of the SEC, and Brett's going to tell you what he thinks about each of these things. It's not, I'm not going to say that it's elimination Saturday in the SEC, but we're to the point now where there's a couple teams where we could be talking about a make or break in terms of what they consider a quality season, especially A&M and Tennessee. And so we're going to get to that in a second. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Brett, before we got into the individual games here, by the way, PodUp with Matthews in the morning, brought to you in part by Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance. It's an office and team dedicated with insurance professionals ready to help life go in the right direction with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visitogreinsurance.com. Give them a call. 352-240-1779. That's 352-240-1779. Some of the bigger games, Oregon, Washington, Notre Dame hosting USC. We got Missouri, Kentucky, LSU in there as well against Auburn. So, Brett, before we get into the individual games, I wanted to ask you this. The SEC has gotten multiple teams in the college football playoff. The Big Ten in the past has gotten multiple teams in the college football playoff. Every conference has at least one undefeated team. The SEC has the fewest unbeaten teams left with only one. The Pac-12 still has three, for crying out loud. The Big Ten still has three. Brett, do you see any way any conference gets multiple teams this year?
I'll tell you an interesting scenario that could happen is in the ACC, because there is a chance Louisville, Florida State, and North Carolina could all end up 12-0 because none of those teams play each other. Seth, how is that possible?
I don't know.
Sometimes you just get a quirk in the schedule. And again, we're not saying that's going to happen, but I can tell you this: the job Jeff Brom's done at Louisville has just been amazing. And again, North Carolina plays Miami this weekend. Miami could rebound. That would make a big difference. But that's one example there of what are they going to do. See, this would have been a better year to have started a 12-team playoff, frankly, with all the possible scenarios that we've got here also. But I can also tell you this: if Georgia goes undefeated during the regular season. I think they will. Now, they do have Tennessee in November. If Bama runs the table, and they've got a big game with the Tennessee next week, and then they've still got LSU and Auburn to go, and then they got to go to Kentucky. Let's say Alabama and Georgia end up in the SEC championship game. Bama's got one loss. Georgia has no losses. If Bama won, that would put Georgia at one loss and Bama with one and being the SEC champion. If that happens, Seth, they both go. People may not like that, but in understanding and watching the committee over the years, that's how that would play out.
I just think it's fascinating that you could have 3 ACC teams undefeated. Everybody's
close
and end of divisions, and here we go. It reminds me of, was it in the mid '90s where Northwestern and somebody else in the Big Ten both had the exact same record, but I don't know if they were both undefeated, but Northwestern got to go to the Rose Bowl because they hadn't gone in the longest. So
yeah. But see, what you said is very important to repeat. We've still got we've got some, and the ACC is one of them that has done away with divisions. And we're still thinking in the SEC about East and West, right? Well, next year that's going away. So what's going to be very fascinating is when you do away with divisions, your tiebreakers are going to be very important, and it's going to be very interesting, Seth, to see. And pretty much every conference has got probably 5 to 10 maybe tiebreakers. That if you get down to it, it almost gets to the point of being ridiculous. But they've got it in place in case they have a problem. So that's one thing that we've got to keep in mind also, along with the playoff the next 2 years, is how this doing away with divisions is going to affect these conferences.
Brent Beaird, Seth Harp with you here on this Thursday edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning. Let's see here. We're going to do the individual games. You got any questions for us? Fire away. Titan MRI text line. If you have any questions, also Facebook Live, courtesy of Meldon Law, Quality Plumbing on our YouTube channel. Any questions for Brent before we wrap this up? I'll fire away there. All right, Brent. SEC weekend. To me, we were looking at Kentucky, Missouri, undefeated clash. Both of those guys got cleaned up last week. Florida trying to get to 5 wins. South Carolina at home, one of their winnable games if they want to get to 8 wins. Auburn, LSU, boy, Hugh Freeze probably looking at 7 or 8 wins if he can knock off LSU. LSU may then become the most disappointing team in college football if they were to lose to Auburn. The SEC slate, what do you got for us?
Well, you mentioned that Auburn and LSU. The amazing thing about this is how well that LSU is playing. And again, Jayden Daniels, a lot of people are saying is a Heisman Trophy candidate, the LSU quarterback, about how well he's doing. The difficult thing for LSU is how bad they are defensively. That's a thing that people can't wrap their arms around. And the funny thing about this game is LSU's pass defense is 121 in the nation. Auburn's pass offense is 121 in the nation. So, they're breaking even with that one, aren't they, Seth? But I mean, LSU's a better team, but Auburn's defense really played well against Georgia, and they can do that against Georgia. Could they do that against LSU?
I'm trying to think with, Georgia is going to kill Vanderbilt. Tennessee.
Yes.
Tennessee A&M. Heupel this year, people thought, okay, they still have Georgia. They get Georgia at home. This is the year. This is the year Tennessee can get to Atlanta, because if they can beat Florida, then they can get to Atlanta, because they got to play Alabama. They lose. They get 11-1. Jimbo Fisher, you get Alabama at home. Okay, this is the year for Jimbo if he want to make these strides. I guess the easy answer is Jimbo Fisher, but nobody expected them to contend for the West. Realistically, thought they'd flirt. People thought Tennessee had a chance. At least they're in the East. People thought these teams would both finish second or have a chance to finish second in their division. So who needs this more in terms of, or realistically, who needs this more as we head into the midway part of the year?
Well, frankly, they both do, but here's the reality of it. If A&M loses this game, they would have lost to Alabama and Tennessee in back-to-back weeks. What A&M really needed was an off week, or to play a non-Power 5 opponent, but that didn't happen at this point. They're going to Knoxville. Tennessee had the week off. Oh, by the way, A&M had to play Alabama. Now, these teams are really good in tackles for loss, and the Aggies are number 1, and Tennessee is number 2, frankly. But this is going to be tough for A&M to gear up and be able to play Tennessee. These teams haven't played very often, so this is one of the reasons why this game is so good. But again, Seth, we get back to this thing. Bobby Petrino is there. We know Connor Weigman went out. Max Johnson had to replace him, but you've still got a situation here to where if A&M loses this game, you're still basically going back, aren't you, into this 8-4, 7-5 territory as they have been for a while, and that would put A&M at 4-3, still with LSU to play, and you're still probably looking at 8-4, and would that be enough for A&M fans to be patient another year, or will that patience run out if they're 8-4 after this season and have not made more progress?
I wanted to ask you really quick. I know you got to get running here. Kentucky and Missouri, just because Kentucky already has Florida under their belt, right? Kentucky
Yes.
already played Georgia. Not played Tennessee yet. With the win over Missouri, Brett, could we be looking in that Kentucky-Tennessee game? Does Kentucky have a chance to win 10-11 games here? If they
Maybe. Possibly. Now Kentucky's they host Alabama in November.
No.
So that will be a big game for them too. But your point's a good one. And see, this is what Mark Stoops has done at Kentucky. We're talking about some rarefied air with them, to where they're getting close to having. They're not going to win double-digit games every year, but they're getting a lot closer than they ever have been. And the issue with Missouri is Missouri, their offense is one of the best in the nation. I mean, Brady Cook's playing really well. This Luther Burden kid that probably a lot of people don't know about, is easily one of the best receivers in the nation. Devin Leary at Kentucky has not played real well. The NC State transfer. So, to your point, this is another big game for those two teams. The winner of this game, Missouri would automatically be bowl eligible. Well, both of them would be if they won this game. So, and just be able to build on that the rest of the year. But you can see some significant improvement, I believe, in Kentucky and Missouri that will continue throughout the year.
Before we let you go, I know I'm going to put you on the spot here. We've seen a couple of upsets in college football, but I don't think we've got an earth-shattering one yet this year. Do you see that changing this weekend? You're not going to stick your neck out here for Vanderbilt over Georgia, are you?
No, not going to do that one. I tell you what would really help if Miami could beat North Carolina.
Okay.
That would help them tremendously to get away from the. My goodness, has anyone had a worse week in college football than Mario Cristobal has had at this point either? I mean, A&M beating Tennessee would be a bit of an upset. A&M just not ranked at this point, but yeah, Oregon and Washington obviously are two top 10 teams. Notre Dame beating USC would be considered somewhat of an upset, even though I'm not sure how much I agree with that because of how tenuous that USC defense is. But Seth, you know how this stuff goes. On the weeks when you least expect something to happen, the great thing about the sport of college football is it usually does.
I know you got to get running here. I've got this for you, Brent. I thought you'd appreciate this. This day in sports history brought to you by Campus USA. Put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. I always try to work at these. I don't give lame ones because I saw yesterday was the 20th anniversary of Pedro Martinez throwing Don Zimmer. How about this? You ready, Brent? 170 years ago today, 8 years before the first shots were fired at Fort Sumter, John Morrissey wins the heavyweight boxing title. Yankee Sullivan leaves the ring after the 36th round to punch a member of John Morrissey's family. 160 years ago, John Morrissey wins the boxing title 8 years before the Civil War.
That's amazing. That's more rounds in a single boxing match than some guys may have their whole life, right?
I can't think of doing 30 anything.
Yeah. Let me mention two quick things before I go. One is, as a Braves fan, we really need a win to stay in this thing. And two, as I go, and this is college football, this is a note that I got real late, but you and I have talked about this a lot of times. The college football playoff has received interest from CBS and Warner Brothers, Discovery, and ESPN, Fox, Apple, Amazon, and it keeps going on and on. They look, this is going to be fascinating to watch, and you as a TV streaming expert can explain this better than anybody. But the slices of the pie for the playoff, Seth, are going to be fascinating, aren't they? As far as where all this goes and how deeply divided or maybe shared is a word I want to use, is this playoffs going to be?
Yeah, because it's going to be a multi-billion-dollar, multi-year deal,
yes.
And it's going to be for conferences to cry poverty. It's like, Brad, do you know how difficult it is to manage $1 billion? All right. There we go. Hey, man, I know I kept you a little late. I know you got to get running. Hey, thanks so much. I appreciate you swinging by today.
And thank you for helping us too, Seth. Take care, bud. Talk to you soon.
With us here on PodUp with Matthews in the morning. You got me for the last, 8-9 minutes of this sucker. Seth Harp on Sports. You thank Brent Beaird for stopping by. You got a question? Fire away. Facebook Live, courtesy of Meldon Law, the only official and accident law firm partner of the Florida Gators. You have a YouTube Live question, feel free. Courtesy of Quality Plumbing, residential commercial plumbing services and emergency repair since 1984. Their name says it all. So question, fire away. Titan MRI text line, 352-353-7465. That's 352-353-7465. Okay. Here we are. I mean, down the stretch we come. As Brent, we were talking about halfway through the college football season. As I mentioned, you could go 8 or 9 deep when Andy writes in. He's like, what about Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma? Best game versus a great team. You're right. I mean, that's why having a discussion about the Heisman Trophy and who should go by really November is when you really can start to dip your toe in that. As of right now, though, to me, where I was going with this is there are 3 guys that you have to invite as of right now. Now, things can change, but the 3 guys that would have to be invited as of right now would be Caleb Williams, Michael Penix Jr., and Brock Bowers. And then, Quinn Ewers has got a chance to get right back in there when it's all said and done. Jordan Travis. I mean, there's tons of guys out there. This list is probably about 12 deep right now that have a legitimate shot. And I'm trying to think, one year there were 6 or 7 guys that got invited. Other years we've only seen 2 or I think 3. But this year, could one bad game do you in? One injury do you in? Maybe. But the thing is, here we are halfway through the year. Tim Tebow won it, got to go back a couple times. Lamar Jackson won it, got to go back. Matt Leinart won it, got to go back. A chance to defend their Heisman Trophy. Caleb Williams halfway through the year is defending it and defending it really well. Yeah, Andy, what are the chances the Broncos upset the Chiefs tonight? Oh, I've got all my Chiefs stuff behind me, bud. So I'm trying to look around here, and I would say, is Travis Kelce playing? If Travis Kelce, you're asking me from a biased perspective, the game's in Kansas City. If Travis Kelce doesn't play, that thing will be closer than people think. I still think the Chiefs probably win at like 24-21. They're just not, Kadarius Toney's not what he was last year. They're a step off. Kansas City's still a step off. And with Kelce banged up a little bit, if he doesn't play, that thing has a chance to be pretty good, pretty competitive. Just tough to crush teams in the NFL. Unless you're the 49ers. But there we are on that front. Good question, though. We'll have that game for you. By the way, we'll have that game for you on ESPN 98.1 FM, 850 AM WRUF. We have we'll be carrying the baseball games this week, but now I try to carry football games and college football games on the weekends. I try to leave the weekends for football and the weekdays for baseball when I can, but tonight we'll carry the Chiefs, the Broncos. I do know this. We have baseball tomorrow night on the station no, we don't. The Astros won last night. So I guess it'll be an open night. But on Saturday, of course, we have Florida, South Carolina, and then I was able to pick up Miami and North Carolina following Florida, South Carolina for the station. And then we got the Bucks and the Creamsicles, baby, against the Lions, and then Sunday Night Football and so on and so forth throughout the course of the week. And then next week, I did this too. I'll let you know this for the station because Florida with the bye. My negotiation tactics. I wish I could pat myself on the back. I dislocate my shoulder. Next week on the station at noon, we've got Ohio State, Penn State. Then we have Tennessee, Alabama. And then we have Utah, USC. So that's our lineup next week when Florida has the bye. So quite the string of things coming up next weekend. Let's see here. A couple other things before we wrap this sucker up. Again, Florida, South Carolina this weekend. What's at stake? Back at the beginning of the year, I said Florida's a 7-5 football team. Their schedule was tougher. They had to go to Utah, got them at home last year. Had to go to LSU, got them at home last year. Had to host Tennessee after going to Tennessee, but it was a tougher schedule. Get Florida State at home, A&M on the road, Arkansas. You had a couple games that shifted out there a little bit. Had to go to Kentucky. I thought it was a 7-5 football team, and I think we're staring at that. I don't know if they lose to South Carolina, gang. I have a tough time seeing them get to 7-5. If they're 4-3, and then you have Georgia and LSU. If they're 5-2, then all of a sudden you look around and go, okay, we just got to get one more to get to bowl eligibility here. And again, it's the extra 15, 20 practices. But Graham Mertz isn't leaving early for the NFL. You got some guys on this team. There's always a couple guys that are going to leave, that are going to bail, but you got a unit that may be sticking around more so than last year's unit did for at least bowl season here as this team tries to build momentum. And what will it do? It'll pick up an SEC road win. Been few and far between, haven't they? Well, they haven't been, with the exception of A&M, they haven't been non-existent. And it's one of these things that, everybody talks 10 wins, 11 wins. Gang, you got to get the small things first. You got to take the small things out of the equation first. And beating South Carolina, this team's 5-2, and exceeding expectations. But this team's 5-2 through their first 7 games. Isn't that right where they should be? Realistically, isn't that right where they should be? Win over South Carolina, you'll have a top 10 win, top 15 win over a team, and you'll be 5-2. And your losses are at Utah, and will be at Kentucky. And then the stretch run begins. Then the difficult stretch run begins. But this is that pendulum game. Talked about the swinging pendulum game, and there were 2 big swinging pendulum games on the docket. South Carolina was one. What was the other one? Arkansas. Those were the 2 that were going to make this an 8-win football team or a 6-win football team, and that's where we are. Got to thank Mr. Brent Beaird for swinging by today. Thanks Shane. Shane, where's Shane? Shane's skedaddling. He's got to hit the road as he heads up to Columbia and gets ready for that showdown, a game that you'll hear Saturday. Pregame coverage beginning at 11:30 on ESPN 98.1 FM, 850 AM WRUF with the 1st and 10 pregame show with Steve Russell. So that's what we have on the slate coming up for you this weekend. And there you go. I know that Zach Rothrock, Phil, the whole gang there with PodUp with Matthews in the morning and Spurrier's Gridiron Girl. Did I see Spurrier's Coach's Rum coming out? I don't have a read for that, and I know Freddie's probably going to kill me for this, but Freddie, I don't see a case of those bottles at my doorstep or in my office. Just letting everybody know. And can we give some of that away on the air? No. Somebody asked me that the other day. Hey, Seth, any chance you can give some of that liquor away? That's one thing that the Federal Communications Commission frowns upon is giving away free booze. So I can tell you that you have to head to Spurrier's to get that. You should go there anyway. All right, Zach, thank you very much. Brent Beaird, thank you very much. Everybody involved, thank you for chiming in. Thank you for following along. And Shane, and I will be back tomorrow, correct? Yes, he'll be back tomorrow. JC and the gang will take you into your weekend. So there you go. All right, for Brent Beaird, I'm Seth Harp. Enjoy your Thursday, everybody. This has been PodUp with Matthews in the morning.